All right, no sugarcoating this, but Democrat Senator Alex Padilla was forcibly removed from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference in Los Angeles. So what's going on? What is going on? Let's play this video. Let's talk about it.
Senator Alex Padilla, I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to
heads off.
how many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty, how they have been targeted.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because
Now, hold on. There's a little bit more. There's a little more because it was taken outside, too.
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
if you let my hands go and put behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat. Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here. I did not know. There's no recording allowed out here per FBI, right?
Hands behind.
Now, there's a little bit more here because there was also a press conference here, too. So I want to pull this up.
Senator Alex Padilla. You guys have some questions. I'm going to read a brief statement. I will not be taking questions, but allow me to read my statement. I'm here in Los Angeles today, and I was here in the federal building, in the conference room, awaiting a scheduled briefing from federal officials as part of my responsibility as a senator to provide oversight and accountability. While I was waiting for the briefing with General Guillot, I learned that Secretary Noem was having a press conference a couple of doors down the hall. Since the beginning of the year, but especially over the course of recent weeks, several of my colleagues have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information in response to our inquiries. And so I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize, just as we've emphasized the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not detained. I will say this. If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country.
I want to pull up this other video here. Shout out to Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on all of his social media.
On Long Island, a traffic stop is causing a lot of outrage. A man born and raised in Suffolk County says ICE agents pulled him over because he's Latino.
All right, this is going to go one of two ways here. Okay. Need to see your ID. If you're not the guy I'm looking for, you're not the guy I'm looking for.
Okay,
right?
That's really frightening.
But we need your ID.
Nah,
Okay, if we don't get your ID, then we're gonna, have to figure out another way to ID you, and it may not work out well for you.
So that ICE agent is demanding 23-year-old Elzon Lemus show his ID, as you heard there. Lemus says this happened June 3rd. He says he is an electrician and was in his work van with a co-worker when he was pulled over in Westbury. ICE agents, he says, forced the door open, handcuffed him, searched him, and when they found his ID, They let him go. Yesterday, Lemus held a press conference with his attorney saying his sense of security has been shaken.
I felt like I wasn't, like I lost all rights when they pulled me over and all that. I felt like I had nothing anymore.
Unless there is an articulable basis upon which there is a reason to ask someone for their identification, which this officer did not provide upon a request, there's a concern there.
ICE has not responded to our requests for comments. Lemus has not filed a lawsuit. He wants to warn others and is calling on the Department of Justice to investigate.
Exactly. So, what's the takeaway here, you outstanding people? What's the takeaway? The takeaway is, at first, you have, of course, a U.S. senator. Yes, now, again, politicians like to grandstand and make scenes, but there is real consequences, such as actual people suffering. So this one Democrat senator from California, a vocal critic of the Trump administration's immigration policies, was forcibly removed and handcuffed as he asked a question at a press conference held by Noem. Now, the video of the incident has gone viral, but of course, with the war going on, anything that's not of the war is being pushed aside. But we need to remember that there's going to be a massive protest taking place on the 14th, the No Kings March, which is a response to what happened earlier this week, as there were massive protests taking place in LA and now in turn happening in other major metropolitan cities near you. So Chicago, New York City, Boston, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's going to be massive protests as there's going to be more immigration raids. I do want to pull up this article here as well. Not this article, but this video as well, because even Noem decided to comment.
The senator after this, we sat down for 10 to 15 minutes and talked about the fact that nobody knew who he was. He didn't say who he was, that until he was already had been lunging forward and people were trying to detain him for quite a period of time. And that this, you know, we're leaders, we're public servants. And if he had requested a meeting, I would have loved to have sat down and had a conversation with him. That coming into a press conference like this is political theater. It's wrong, and it does a disservice to this country and the people who live here. So we sat down, had a conversation. We probably disagree on 90% of the topics, but we agreed to exchange phone numbers. We'll continue to talk and share information. And I think that's the way it should.
First impressions are lasting impressions, and being arrested really isn't a good impression. Okay. Now, we saw that press conference. We saw how this administration is following through with a campaign promise of rounding up migrants. Now, as it stands right now, Trump is also making statements that he's not going to do anything to impact farmers. But already we have to look at the consequence and fallout from this. Trump ran on this. Trump ran on having ICE go unleashed. Trump ran on the promise of rounding up people. Trump ran on this. And also, again, with the failure of the sanctuary cities led by the Democrats, this is a perfect hotbed in which people's emotions will get the better of them. I do hope that everything goes good on the 14th. That's tomorrow. And for those of you who will be watching this video, I'll be clipping this in our live stream chat and posting it on Saturday, tomorrow. And I do hope that on that day, everything still is going smooth. Everything is still fine with the people. Everything is still good with the people. And that there is no problem, that there is no crisis, that there is no danger. Beware out there. Be afraid out there. Be concerned of what you see. But remember, this is a U.S. politician now. You know, I don't want to say that this is a sign of things to come. Maybe that this is authoritarianism. I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen people get arrested before. We've seen people get censored. We've seen people get doxxed. Ever since 9/11, we've been losing more and more of our freedoms in these ongoing forever wars. All the while we sleep, all the while we have our politicians lie to us, all the while we have the corporate media continue to read off notes but not inform us. I see a recipe for disaster happening. And in order for us to be aware of the news and how to be a step ahead, yes, we have to be vocal about this. Yes, we have to call out the Trump administration, but we have to look at the actions of other previous administrations and the actions of other U.S. politicians that have let this happen. Their policies, what they have passed. what they have allowed to continue on, because we are seeing all of that now bloom. All the poison in the mud is hatching out. And everyone is going to be on the chopping block. Be safe out there.